Okay. Good evening. This weekend's essential question is, can you explain the importance of enzymes within an organism? So again, we're still thinking at a chemical level, a molecular level, these certain processes that happen within an organism's body. Okay, so again, you do not have to write everything down. The highlighted stuff are the key concepts to get to understand. So let's think about this. So living things, we're made up of chemical compounds. You might not think of yourself as chemicals. That's essentially what we are a bunch of different types of chemical compounds. And some of them are simple, other of them are more complex. And so everything that happens within our body, anytime we grow, anytime we interact with our environment, even when we breathe, reproduce, and move, it's all based off of chemical reactions, these chemicals reacting with each other and within the environment. And so when we're talking about chemical reactions require energy. And energy is the ability to move or change matter. And so it can be stored or released by chemical reactions. So let's take a look at a chemical reaction. So it's anytime a molecule changes or transforms from one set of chemicals into another. And so what you see is that these chemical bonds are broken and rearranged into new compounds. The atoms are not being created or destroyed, they are just being rearranged. And so what I want you to get down into your notebooks is what a chemical equation looks like. So I'd write down an example of a chemical equation, and I would label the left side the reactants and the right side the products. And so again, this whole process requires energy to break these bonds and form new ones into the new products. Okay, and so when it comes to energy, energy can either be absorbed or released when we're breaking up these chemical bonds and forming new compounds. And so here's some examples within the body. If we're taking chemical energy, this is energy that we get from foods, so carbohydrates, fats, or other macromolecules. Again, our body is going to rely on chemical reactions to break down those molecules and turn it into energy, which is what our cells use in order to do all of its functions. And we also metabolize it as well. And so that whole chemical process requires energy to do, and it gets released as heat. Okay, so when we're talking about energy required, activation energy is the energy needed to get a reaction started. Now, there's also two different types of reactions. So again, it's the energy needed in order to get a reaction started. Reactions don't just happen spontaneously. We need a certain amount of energy to go into it in order for it to get going. So here's the two different types of reactions. I do want you guys to draw these shapes and label them into your notebook. So if we're talking about the amount of energy it takes to do a reaction over time, the energy absorbing reactants are going to start out with less energy than what it ends with. So the reactants form new products, and it takes a certain amount of energy to get going, but it's going to end up absorbing energy at the end. On the other side, the opposite of that, energy-releasing reactions, these are reactants that when they form new products, it still takes energy in order to do it, but then at the end it has released a bunch of energy and has formed new products. Okay, so let's think about it. These chemical reactions that are happening in our body require a lot of energy. There's a large activation energy in order to get these chemical reactions to happen. And so our cells don't have enough energy in order to do that. So we need something in order to help this process. And the macromolecule that helps us are called enzymes. They're specialized proteins, and they speed up those chemical reactions in our bodies. If our bodies did not have enzymes, chemical reactions wouldn't occur quickly or easy enough for our bodies to stay alive. So again, these help up. They're kind of like chemical reaction helpers. They help the process along. So let's take a look at what they do. So here we have two different reactions, one without an enzyme and one with an enzyme. So you can see the amount of energy it takes over time to go from the reactants to the products to complete the chemical reaction. It takes a lot more energy to get it going than it does with an enzyme. So your goal to get a good chemical reaction is to have as little activation energy as possible. That enzyme allows it to react a lot quicker and a lot easier. So what do they look like? How do they do their job? So here we have a picture of an enzyme right here, large macromolecule protein. And it has this part called an active site. Now that active site is unique depending on the reactants. So only specific reactants fit into certain specific enzymes. Each enzyme is unique to the type of reaction that it helps. Another word that we're going to use for reactants is substrate when we're talking about enzymes. And so what this does is the enzyme locks into the reactants and turns it into new products. And so this can happen all over and over and over again, and this enzyme's helping it along. Oh, I also like to mention that I like to use the analogy, it's like a lock and a key. The lock being the enzyme, the key being the substrate. And so only specific keys can unlock certain locks. Here's another image to help you out too. So we've got this process, these reactants, water and carbon dioxide, and this enzyme is just going to speed up the process and turn those reactants or those substrates into a new product, and the product would be carbonic acid. And that's something that happens in our bodies. Okay, so enzymes don't change. They can be reused. So once an enzyme has done a chemical reaction, it can do it again and over and over and over again. So our enzymes in our bodies stay with us. Now, certain factors can change the effectiveness of enzymes. So how quick and how well they can do the reaction. Temperature, pH, the amount of enzymes, the quantity of it, and then also certain proteins in our bodies called cell regulator proteins. They either tell the enzyme to stop or go. So these are factors that can change how quickly and how well these enzymes do these processes. Okay, so a little preview what you'll be seeing on Monday and Tuesday in lab is we're going to be working with this enzyme called catalase. Now, anytime you see a root here, ACE, you know that you're working with an enzyme. And so this enzyme catalase takes this product called hydrogen peroxide, which is actually toxic to our bodies. Our bodies produce this toxic chemical called hydrogen peroxide, but luckily we have this enzyme called catalase, which then turns that hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen gas, which is not toxic to us. And so this is what we're going to be looking at on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to be looking at this enzyme called catalase and seeing how different factors affect this catalase reaction. Okay, so here are your questions. I want you to answer them in your notebook. Take a look at the image A right down here. I want you to tell me, is this an energy releasing or an energy absorbing reaction? And then number 2 is a question that I want you to answer as well. Do all enzymes in the body, I'm sorry, this is incorrect here. It should say, do all enzymes in the body, or are, my bad. Here we go. Are all enzymes in the body the same? All right, it wouldn't be a Miss Kaiser video notes without a mistake. There we go. Are all enzymes in the body the same? So can they perform the same chemical reaction? And explain your answer. Okay, so don't forget to read through your notes you took, interact with them, highlight, underline, circle key concepts, review these concepts that you just learned, and then come up with your 2 questions and a summary at the end. And I will see you on Monday for lab.